Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel and a video all about basing. I've been asked quite a few times over the past few years, specifically what products, what techniques do I use when I'm basing my miniatures. I thought it was finally time to make that video. I've made a couple of videos in the past about basing, but you know, we move on as hobbyists, we develop new techniques, start using new products. So I thought it was time to do an updated video on exactly the bits and pieces that I use to do basing. This isn't a basing tutorial video. I am going to show examples of some of the miniatures that I've based using these techniques, but it's not really a tutorial. And I should mention, clump foliage and tufts. In the video you're going to see many examples of clump foliage and tufts. I'm not really going to focus on these. I think everyone's got their go-tos. I know I certainly have. So this is going to be a given that tufts and clump foliage get added to the bases. So I'm going to start off with what I call my basic basing, my go-to, the technique that I've been using for the past couple of years or so. So let's have a look at it. So my basic basing technique. Before I start a project, there's three things I always have in mind about how I want my basing to be. Is it easy to apply? I don't want to be spending hours involved in some kind of alchemy to apply things to bases. Is it going to look effective? How is it going to look on the miniature, on the table from 3 feet away? And lastly, can it be combined with other existing products, and how easily can that be done? So they're the three main things or aspects that I really consider before I start basing. But on to my go-to, and it's this Vallejo thick mud. This is absolutely fantastic. Like I say, it's my go-to. Anyone that's been checking out my work over on social media for the past couple of years or so will know that I use this quite a lot. Is it easy to apply? Yes, it is. I apply it with sculpting tools and cocktail sticks. Is it effective? Yes, it really is. It looks so realistic when it goes on. And can you combine it with other products? Yes, you can. Clump foliage, static grass, tufts, water, you name it. This is the business, and this is what I use for, I'd say, 90% of my basing currently. So for the past sort of two and a half years, this is what I've been using. It comes in different sizes. I always go for the big ones because I use so much of this stuff. I get through it like nobody's business. So what I'm going to do is show you a few examples of miniatures where this has been the primary basing material for them. So first up is something that I've been working on recently, and these have actually been rebased, so I've been taking advantage of some new bases, and it's these. So these are Rubicon USMC. So as you can see, look at the bases. That is literally just the Vallejo mud, some clump foliage and some tufts. And for me, it's the simplest way of adding basing to a base. It's so simple. It looks effective. Initially these were done in more jungle based. I just didn't like the theme. I'm going to be mentioning jungle basing later on in the video, but for now I'm just concentrating on this mud effect. So that's my USMC by Rubicon. I think the basing, again, really quickly. The good thing about the Vallejo mud, it dries relatively fast. You put it near the window, let some sunshine on it, it can dry sort of 2-3 up to about 4 hours. And after that you can work with it. It's still quite pliable, so things will sort of press into it, which is really good when you're adding clump foliage and tufts and possibly, you know, rocks, etc. But I think that is a good way of just demonstrating the Vallejo mud. It just provides a really good base. Now the good thing about it is you can use it over many different scales. So here's some USMC in 15mm. So these are 3D printed USMC by 3D Breed. As you can see, the basing is exactly the same. I've used the mud, I've used the clump foliage. What I've not used on these is the tufts. I think the tufts might be quite big compared to the size of the miniature, and you don't want that. You don't want the miniature to be sort of detracted from by the basing. You got to strike that happy medium. But again, it just demonstrates the different scales that the mud can be used at relatively quick. You can base these up, you know, it doesn't take too long at all. But again, that Vallejo mud gives that really good base. You can add a lot of things to it, and it looks great at that scale as well. Now another thing about the mud is, now this is the controversial part of the video. You can even use it to base vehicles. I know, that's a video for another time. I base my vehicles, and I always will. But what I do is I make an MDF base, sometimes by gluing two together. I just spread the Vallejo mud all over the base. Then while it's still tacky, I glue the tank or vehicle or what have you directly onto the base and let it dry. While it's drying, I will get additional mud and I will put it all over the tracks. This hides many mistakes. Yeah, weathering material and basing hides a myriad of errors. And on this we've even combined clump foliage with the mud to put some clumps on the dozer blade there to make it like it's been smashing through bocage in Normandy. So again, it can be used on small bases, big models, small models. And you see what I've done there. I'm going to mention this in a bit more, but I've added some water effect there. I'll show you that in a bit more detail later on in the video. But again, who says you have to stop at that scale? Because here's a 15mm Firefly. So you can see the size difference between the two, but they've both had the same basing technique. It's always the Vallejo mud. And again, exactly the same thing with this. The mud was applied to the base and then glued directly to the mud. Really strong bond. And yeah, I think it just demonstrates the versatility of the Vallejo mud. But you can get smaller. So I use it as well on my epic American Civil War by Warlord Games. This is a slightly different way that I use it with this. So I use the mud. As you can see, it's covering the bases. And then once that's dry, I will add a static grass. Now I use quite a bright static grass on my epic ACW. I think at that scale you need something brighter on the base, and then I just use a few different coloured bits of clump foliage. But again, just demonstrates that it can be used at all different scales. Again, really quick, and what it does, it hides all my errors around the feet on these guys that I don't tend to paint. So it's good for that. Yeah, but can you go even smaller? Yes, you can, because there's some even smaller ones. Now these are from Rock Minis. These are some 10mm orcs. Yeah, we are getting smaller here. And again, the technique is the same. Apply it to the base. You just add the Vallejo mud all around it. And again, with this, I'm using the same technique here. So the quite bright static grass with the clump foliage. And this is the smallest I've tried so far with the mud. But again, hopefully that demonstrates just how effective it is. You know, big models, small models, big bases, really small bases. It's effective. It's a good medium for working with other products. I just think it works really well. So let's see all that in action. We've got the mud, we've got the clump foliage, we've got tufts, we've got all kinds. Hopefully this is a good example of what can be achieved using the mud. Again, it just works so well with other products. They adhere to it quite, really well. I use super glue to attach the clump foliage. The tufts, I've got a sticky back so they go straight on. I've even used a bit of cork on here, some rocks. There's a skull on there as well. But again, very easy way of covering a large base really quite quickly and being able to add all different bits and pieces to give it that really unique look. And again, this really demonstrates the versatility of it. There's so much going on this base, but it is really, really nice. So that's Vallejo mud. Now, can it be used with other products? It absolutely can. So what we have is this. So this is Vallejo water texture. This works in conjunction with this really very well. What I tend to do is when I apply this, I will dig out little divots, and then I can add puddles and all kinds with this. As I mentioned before, on the Firefly, hopefully you can see the water effect there, and you just apply it straight on top of the wet mud, and it dries. It takes a bit longer to dry than the mud itself, and I would recommend leaving it overnight, because there's nothing worse than picking it up and putting a dirty great thumbprint all over where your water should be. And the good thing about the water effect is that you can add washes to the water effect to give it different colours. So this is a stump gun from Turnip 28, a very, very, very muddy game, so it does come in really quite handy if you're doing Turnip 28, the mud effect. And what I did, I just added a brown wash to the water, then applied it. As you can see, it's got a gungy brown colour on there as well, so it does mix in really well. Another example is on my Turnip 28 elephant. Again, quite heavy on the wash with this one, but I think it gives a good impression of, really, really gross, fetid, stinky water, which it would be if it's Turnip 28, because that's what Turnip 28 is. Again, just shows that it can work on a whole host of different scales and different periods. So that's Vallejo mud and water. Now, there are times when I don't use the mud if I don't think it's appropriate. The main two for me are burrows and badgers and Bushido, where I don't want the mud. I like these miniatures look quite clean, and so what I'll do is I will use this as the base. So this is Army Painter Battlefield Grass Green. It's like a flock. It's quite coarse, and what I do is I'll paint the base green, cover this in PVA, cover the base in PVA, and then dunk it in this, and that gives a really good base to add things to. So we have a look at the burrows, how it's done on burrows and badgers. So we've got a bulldog here. It's a very, very happy chap then. And all I've done is the base, because the burrows and badgers bases are quite high. It's good because it's all contained within within the lip. So again, just applied lots and lots of that the flock. Then I've gone in and just added clump foliage and some tufts. I need, again, so it's a very mischievous looking chap there. Again, the basing is done in exactly the same way. So Vallejo mud is applied, and then the foliage and the tufts are added. Lastly is this rather gnarly and angry looking badger. Again, really big bases, but they do work on the smaller bases for burrows and badgers as well, so that the technique can be carried across regardless of the size of the base. Now in burrows and badgers you do have different size bases for the different size animals. I also mentioned as well that I use this for Bushido. Again, they've got very similar bases to burrows and badgers, as you can see with this snake wielding lady here. Again, just use the flock to cover the base, then add the clump foliage and the tufts. Again, no mud. I like the clean look of the Bushido and the burrows and badgers figures. So that's my basic basing. What I'm going to move on to next is something that I've been asked for. I'm asked questions about many times over the years, and it's a basing technique that for me has evolved. It's snow and snow covered bases. So I shall see you in the next part. So yes, onto snow. I think everybody's tried some form of snow technique at some point. And mine began about 20 years ago with Flames of War. I was trying to do some Winter Germans, and strangely enough I went with, I think it's a tried and tested that people have used over the years. It's PVA glue and bicarbonate of soda, and quite bizarrely I still have the original tub of bicarbonate of soda I bought probably in about 2005. I wouldn't like to use this for baking purposes right now, possibly do yourself some serious harm, but this was my first go-to. So it was combining PVA glue with bicarbonate of soda. You'd make a gloopy paste and you put it on all over your base, and it looked great until about 6 months later when you looked at it again, and it descended into a shade of yellowy, browny, gunky awfulness. And I persevered with that for years. I used to go back and, you know, apply white paint to try and touch it up and make it a bit less yellow than it actually was. And then I discovered this stuff. This is Army Painter Battlefield Snow, and this stuff was a revelation. It's, as you can see, I'll just open it. Well, you can see that it's quite coarse. It's like a crunchy coarse material. And what I liked about it was that it gives a realistic interpretation of snow. Snow's not always smooth and flat. You know, it's crunchy. It's irregular, and this is exactly what this product by Army Painter does. Now I still use PVA glue to apply it, and the first models I tried this on was my kit bashed US Airborne, and it looks like this. As you can see, it's got that lovely texture to it, and all I did was just apply PVA and then put two layers of the Army Painter Battlefield Snow over it, left it to dry, brushed off the excess, and you probably know you can see it on this, but you can see it's grainy, it's coarse, and it gives it a really good, like I say, a really good representation of snow. So I use this across the entire project. So there's the heavy machine gun. And again, it sticks to a lot of, well, most things. So if you use the PVA, I even use it on the helmets as well. As the snow's been coming down. But yeah, I thought this product is absolutely fantastic. And here's a medic team as well. So again, just so it can be used on big bases, small bases, and combine it with a few winter looking tufts there, and it is the business. And again, it fulfills all the things I'm looking for. It's really simple to apply, it's effective, it looks good from 3 feet away, it gives that impression of snow, and it can be used in conjunction with other products. I can imagine combine this with mud, you know, the Vallejo mud along with this, yeah, you have snowy, muddy battlefield. As you can see as well, I'll get to this later in the video, cork basing. Oh, I love cork for basing. It's such a great material, and I've got a section on that coming up later in the video. But again, this was my go-to for snow. And then about a year later, I was reworking my bolt action Stalingrad German project. Now these chaps had been victims of the PVA and the bicarbonate of soda, and the snow didn't look good. It had yellow, it would just look dull and flat. And about the same time, I was given this as a present. So this is Vallejo Snow, and it's I'm going to try and open it, you can see it. It's like a paste. It's really quite thick. Now you could use that and just, you know, splash it on your bases and you've got snow. But I thought, well, what would happen if we combined the two? So replace the PVA with the Vallejo Snow, and then while it's still wet, apply the Army Painter Battlefield Snow. What could happen? What strange magic could happen? And this happened. As you can see. So remember, this has been put over an existing snow effect. So these chaps initially had the PVA and the bicarb, and they look pretty terrible. But by adding this over the snow, and then while it's still tacky, just sort of sprinkling it over. You don't want to, I was tempted to dunk it in, but I wanted more control over it. And you can build up separate areas. And again, the look you get is really good. It's got that crunchy, irregular look. I apply it with a cocktail stick, and you can work it into, you know, into the bases, into all nooks and crannies. And it keeps, the main thing for me, it keeps its sharpness, it keeps that whiteness. And here we have it on a medium machine gun team. And maybe a little bit of the yellow still showing through from the previous one, but I don't mind that. It just makes it like an old snow, or it's mixed up with the dirt. But what I was looking for was just an increase on the sort of the vividness of the snow. And that was, yeah. So I've got two snow-related bolt action armies now. Both got slightly different techniques, but they both work. And yeah, this is a combination I would really recommend if you're looking to do snow. Again, is it easy to apply? Very easy. I apply it with a cocktail stick. Put this on first, sprinkle it on afterwards. Is it effective? Well, yes, it looks like snow. It's really, really good. And does it work with the products? Well, yeah, we're combining two products here. So, like I mentioned earlier, it's like an evolution of hobby when it comes to the snow. Started off with the old bicarbonate of soda. I'm too scared to look inside. I don't know what's in there. I really don't want to know. And then to this, and then just to combine the two. Now, this is what I will use moving forward. If I do another sort of snow-related project, this will be my two go-to products for doing that. They just work so well, and I'm really happy with the outcome. So what's next? Well, next is another one that I've been asked about several times, and that is desert basing. So yes, desert basing. So again, with desert basing, I'm going to hark back to my early years of Flames of War. I had a North African British Army, mostly Sikh troops. And for the desert basing, I kept it really quite simple. I just used filler, and I applied it to the base, applied sort of a brown wash to it, a bit of a dry brush, and that was it. Did it look particularly good? Not really. It was effective. I mean, I could base up quite a few stands relatively quickly, and it was all about getting the troops on the table. And I've never done desert basing ever since. But then a couple of years back, I was working on my bolt action Deutsche Afrika Korps. And I remembered the greatest basing product known to man. Cork board. I absolutely love this stuff. So versatile, it's cheap, you can find it many different places. Easy to work with, it's easy to cut up, it paints well, it washes well. It's just massively versatile. In fact, it's sort of a running joke in the PCP community about my reliance on cork. And as you can see, a few of the figures I've shown you in the video already have been based on cork. I absolutely love it. It's just a brilliant basing material. So I thought, well, my Deutsche Afrika Korps are all going to be based on cork. And so here are examples of that. They're quite big. I've put them on regular troops as well. As you can see, that's a cork base. That's like a giant, great big biscuit. But I think it represents desert really quite well. And again, it's so easy to use. You can cut it with a craft knife. You can halve it with a craft knife if you want to make the base slightly lower. You can stick things to it. Things adhere to it really well. What I do is I stick it to a base, and then what I do is I get super glue gel and apply it all around the edges, and then dunk it into a mixture I've got. It's like sharp sand, little rocks, all different grades and coarseness, and they give that really irregular edge, and it hides any of the base that's still showing through. And again, once it's painted, and again these things they paint up so quickly. I tend to keep the paint really quite watery, and the cork absorbs it, so you can paint it really quite quickly. Then it's just a heavy dry brush over it. Add rocks and tufts. I say rocks, that's actually kitty litter. I mean, obviously unused kitty litter, but kitty litter. I've got a bag from my sister, and they're excellent. Kitty litter is excellent for small rocks. Again, I think most things can be used as basing, but again, they were quite flat and a bit barren without that. So I had a couple of the desert looking tufts, the kitty litter rocks, bit of a wash, and there we go. And does it meet my criteria? Is it simple to work with? Absolutely. Cork is such an easy material to work with. It's really effective, and that's my second one. Is it effective? Yes, it is. It just looks like rough desert rock. And can you combine it with other products? Well, yes, tufts. You've got the grit all around the base. You've got the kitty litter rocks. You've even got bits and pieces here just to break the base up. And I think it's a good demonstration of just how effective cork can be as a basing material. Yeah, so that's applied to all of my Deutsche Afrika core. Every single infantry or support option has got a cork base. And then I discovered a new product. Well, not a new, well, it's not a new product, it's a new product to me, which is this. Again, Vallejo earth texture, desert sand, and it's a good colour. It looks like that, but it can be painted. And I started using this on a few different things. I used it actually on my Deutsche Afrika core. Again, controversial, so bear with me. I used it to base tanks. So this Panzer IV here, again, just made the base, and then just covered the entire base in the Vallejo desert sand texture. While it was drying, glued the tank straight down onto it, and then all I did then was give it a wash. Just a wash of really light brown and black, and then a slight dry brush, and that's it. And it's a really effective. You can't really see a lot of it, but it ties the overall project together. But can it be used on smaller, more infantry-based figures? Well, absolutely yes, it can. And these are some Afghan tribesmen by Perry Miniatures. These plastics, and again, this is the paste just applied directly to the base, and then when it was dry, I gave it a really thin wash of a mixture of black and brown Vallejo washes. And when that was dry, I added, yep, you guessed it, kitty litter rocks there. There's a few other bits of other rocks there, and some tufts. And there's the final chat. But yeah, it works on big models, big bases, smaller models, smaller bases, and it's really effective. It's like a paint as well. It's a really good product to work with. Again, dead easy to apply. I just apply it with a craft knife, well, not craft knife, a sculpting tool. It dries about the same as the mud. I'd give it between 3 and 4 hours before it's totally dry before working with it. If you try and apply a wash to it while it's wet, you're gonna have some problems. So you've got to make sure it's perfectly dry if you're adding a wash to it. But again, so if I did Deutsche Afrika core, I'd still use the cork basing. But if I was going, when I do get around to doing some more of these Afghan tribesmen, yeah, absolutely using this product. Very, very impressed by it. I've been using it for a couple of years now. So that's desert basing and Vallejo earth texture desert sand. Highly recommended. And again, it works with other products as well, which is one thing I always look for. And the ubiquitous cork board. So they are my two go-tos for desert basing. On to the next one, jungle basing. And on to jungle basing. Again, it's one that, you know, there's many different ways out there to represent it. You can go for the muddy jungle, the sort of deluge jungle. You combine the Vallejo water with the Vallejo mud. I've done that for an abandoned project. I did it a few years back, didn't work. But the actual basing technique was fantastic. That worked really well. Now, I mentioned earlier in the video that I've recently been repainting or rebasing some of these US Marines by Rubicon. And I initially went with my old basing technique for doing jungles, which I'll get to in a second. But I went with the Vallejo mud with the tufts and the static grass. Now I don't know why, it just didn't work with these. But my old go-to was this. Mixed herbs. Supermarket mixed herbs, and I can tell you the smell in here right now is glorious. It's that really funky, pungent smell of mixed herbs. Now, this stuff is fantastic. It just looks like jungle scrub, really dried out jungle, and it's just a really effective and easy material to work with. I just apply it with PVA, do 3 or 4 coats of it to make sure you get a good even coverage. Leave it to dry overnight. The smell does go away, I promise. Once it's been out of the container for a few days, the smell will go away. And some people even cook with this stuff. I've never known a like. For me, it's a basing material and will always be a basing material. That's mixed herbs. And here's some examples of the mixed herbs in action. So here we have an Australian short 25 pounder, I believe. So again, the basing, it's on an MDF base, and it's been given a liberal dosing of the mixed herbs. As you can see, once it's down. Some people, when they use these mixed herbs, they'll go back with a watered down PVA mixture and spray it, and that locks it all in. I've never had to do that. The occasional bit falls off, but I've never had to spray it with watered down PVA. Most of it adheres to the base, and I just think it looks really effective. It's just got that wonderful mixture of colours. It's got the texture. It looks nice. What I would say is you don't put the PVA straight onto the base. Put down a grit or even the mud from Vallejo, and then put the mixed herbs over it. Trying to get that to stick straight to PVA, stick to MDF would probably be a bit of a pain, so I wouldn't try it. Always try and put it onto something else. But as you can see on here, I've added tufts, logs, and it's just a really nice material to work with. And you can use it on smaller basing as well. This is the Australian Medic Team, one of my favourite models ever, this. But again, you can see it around their feet. It just looks like jungle scrub. Really easy to apply. Okay, apply it with PVA, leave it overnight, and then brush off the excess and add clumps and tufts and clump foliage. So I would still use both of these techniques. So I'd still use this if I was adding any more to my bolt action Australian or US Marine Corps bolt action armies. For my Rubicon Vietnam USMC, I'm sticking with the mud and the clump foliage and the tufts. I just think it just works better at that scale with those Marines. But yeah, I do like mixed herbs as a basing material. Again, it's just, when you look at it, it's just got that coarseness to it, the different colours. It just, works really well, and it smells really nice for a couple of days, and then it fades, and then you're left with some rather realistic looking jungle scrub. So that's my main jungle technique is that, or the one I showed you earlier. Like I say, really easy. Is it easy to apply? Yes, it is. Is it effective? I think so. I think from 3 feet away, even from 3 inches away, it looks really good. I just think it really does play the part. And once you've added your bits and pieces, absolutely really great. Okay, it's not a base material as such, but in this house it certainly is. And that's my jungle basing. On to the final stage of the video. I'm going back to cork and show you just what you can do with a bit of extra pieces added to your cork basing to make some quite nice urban sci-fi bases. And on to the last part of the video. I'm returning to cork. I mentioned in the desert part of the video how effective cork is. It's really good for that desert look, really craggy rocks. You add a mixture of grit or textured sand to it, dry brush it, and you really get that effect. I've also used it on, so moving away from historicals to a more sci-fi themed basing using cork and grit and weathering pigments. And these are on my Horus Heresy Death Guard. These bases are quite striking. I do like the way these turned out, and that's just using a combination of it's cork. This time it's not quite as thick as the bolt action basing. What I've done, I've halved it, put it on the base, and I've got the grit here is really quite big. I think it's actually railway ballast from a model railway. The grit and the chips now, they're quite big bits, but again, they're just applied with super glue gel. Now, using super glue gel, what it does, it clumps the ballast together, and so you get really irregular formations like that. That's why I always use super glue gel when applying sort of grit or rocks to cork basing. So you get that really irregular looking outcrops on the bases. It gives that really sort of sci-fi look. You could also use this, I suppose, on modern. You could use. I mean, you could use this technique on any period. I just find I like it. It works better with sort of sci-fi. You're on some strange planet. And then what you'll notice is the actual colour of the base itself. So I initially paint them as sort of a slate grey. Do a bit of dry brushing to give some highlights on there, and then with these I give them a massive dose of weathering pigments, and it really, if you put it into all the recesses, it looks like dirt and dust and debris. Again, it just demonstrates the versatility of cork. It's the same as it was done for these chaps. Just a dry brushing of, well, quite a heavy dry brush of the weathering pigments. Use an old brush, splatter it on, and then blow off the excess, and you're left with a really quite effective looking basing material. Again, cork is brilliant to work with, simple to work with. And the next two are just an example of quite basic cork basing. These are two, I'm going to show my old schoolness here. These are Eldar Scouts. I know they've got a new name, but I'm going to call them Eldar. As you can see, the base is very simple, just cork painted grey and dry brushed, with the edges of those bases being caught by quite a heavy dry brush of white. No pigments. I just like the very basic look of these two. But again, hopefully that shows you what can be done with cork basing. Same material, they look quite different. So there we go, that is it. They are the main types of basing that I use. I was quite surprised when I was getting the figures out for this video, how the varying techniques that I've used on miniatures over the years, and I love finding new ways and new techniques of basing figures. But yes, that's it. Hopefully you found the video. Hope it could give you some hints or tips or general pointers, or a bit of inspiration on how to do your own basing. I love basing. I think it really elevates a model, really adds to it, and once you've got sort of, you know, an entire project, entire army all based the same way, I think it looks absolutely spot on. Right, if you've got any comments or questions about the video or basing or gaming in general, just leave them down below and in the comment section, and I'll certainly respond to all comments and questions. But as always, thanks for watching. Do take care. May your dice roll well, and I'll catch you all in the next video. So bye bye for now.